Hi everyone, welcome back, and in today's video I will be sharing with you a method of creating more interest in your artwork by incorporating painted textures. Now sometimes you may heard of it referred to as adding greater details, but without using that tiny brush and making marks all over the place or stippling, right? But wait, Fred, what in the world is that? You might be asking. Well, let's jump right in and I'll show you. Okay, so I'll be demonstrating this method, this technique, by going over this painting of a woman enjoying a painting of a colorful surf scene. Okay, so straight away, as you notice, I apply a thin underpainting with cadmium yellow light. And so this is a 9 by 12 inch canvas in portrait orientation. Now, I went ahead and sketched in the basic shape of the sky, the wave, and the headland beforehand. The sketch is a bit washed out, but it'll work in this case. So you notice I masked off the area with the blue tape, the framed artwork of the surf scene there. Now I could have perhaps went with a clear blue sky, but for more interest and mood, I like to add clouds, hence more texture and greater colors, more details, thus again creating more interest to the viewer who views this work. Also, notice this rolling cloud design for a more dramatic look. Designed to draw in the viewer to direct the eye towards the bottom left where the wave will be towering. And the sky for this painting, I decided to use an expanded color palette of blues mixed with titanium white for the sky. In the water, I used a phthalo blue and turquoise for most of the water. Yellows and orange for the sunset, browns for the headland and the figure's hair. Now at this point, I apologize. I thought the camera was recording, but it was not. But this was the outcome, and you can see my other videos as to how I paint the waves in whitewater. This is where the tape comes off, and it's time to put in the wall color. I decided to go with a tattered turquoise with streaks of a different color, and in this case, purple, or brilliant purple, suggesting perhaps the exterior wall somewhere in the Hawaiian Islands. And this is a mix of turquoise, brown, and brilliant purple for most of this green area on the wall. This is where the wall could be a solid color, but I employ a streaky texture here versus just a plain solid block of color. Again, we're looking for more texture, and this is how I do it. So take your wet brush with turquoise and you dip it in another color. In this case, I used, like I said, a brilliant purple. Let the colors just do their thing by just let the streaks happen on the canvas. And careful not to blend the colors here. This is how I add textures for this particular area. So for the next step, I'm putting in this frame, and this is the underlay, which is a raw sienna dark, which is more like a yellow ochre, but maybe just a shade darker. I'm careful to place the layer right next to that surfscape image. And then for the frame details, I put in the lights and darks, the lights and the shadow. Also, I'm shooting for a more rugged, bumpy frame for this. And I'm using a raw umber for the darker areas and orange, burnt umber for the middle tones, with yellow and white added to raw sienna for the areas facing the light, which in this case is located to the viewer's upper left side. So here for the picture frame, again, I'm shooting for with all this texture on here, an amorphous, broken up, almost like a gold nugget look, right? Just to add a little more energetic, razzled feel, if that's even a word. All right, so check it out. Try this in your own work. If you have a wall, say maybe a floor, a ceiling, posts, or a bedpost, you name it. Just go ahead and try it out. Add a texture to it. What kind of texture, you ask? Well, use this one, or come up with some of your own. You're the artist. All right, so this next area here is the shadow that the frame is casting onto the wall. And for these colors, I'm using a phthalo green mixed with raw umber, with a little bit of the brilliant purple. So now the figure in this painting, we start with the head of hair. The underlay, I go with a medium brown underlay, or a block-in color, if you will. This is a burnt umber, which is a medium value brown. So later on I can come in and add lights and darks. Next I continue with a skin tone, which is a mixture of what's called atelier. Atelier. Did I say that right? I'm not sure. Atelier Interactive Acrylics. The color is jaune brillant, or jaune brillant, kind of like a Porky Pig pink. Burnt umber, that mixed with burnt umber, raw sienna dark with a touch of cadmium red for the skin tone. And if I want to make it a lighter skin color, I just add more of that jaune brillant. And for a darker skin tone, I use more of the burnt umber for the local shadows on the arm there. So note, I lightly brush into the turquoise of the wall to soften these edges. My goal here is to keep the focal area, which is the wave and the woman's head, the focal area. And I'll incorporate the harder edges in these parts, the focal areas that is, to imbue more of being in focus. And more of the areas outside of this focal area, I will incorporate more softer edges, more brush strokes on top of another color, but very lightly. And sometimes in other cases, I might even leave them unfinished a little more, or use an abstract treatment. So here we come next to the blouse. After I block in the hair, the arms, the white here is titanium white. I use a number 8 flat brush. And I leave this lower area, allowing the undercoat to come through, this kind of yellow and turquoise. And I'll go over this later in a little more detail. And the same with the blue in her jeans. I use the other end of the brush to place scratches to indicate perhaps some belt loops, seams, or the top of the pockets in the pants. So now with a lighter brush, perhaps a number 1, well, in this case, a number 1 round, I add some highlights in the hair using a mix of raw sienna dark, yellow ochre, and again that jaune brillant. Mix it up so that these areas of highlights would be different in different areas, and that's to keep the look fresh and convincing. So working my way down, I add details in the white blouse, a little more using white with a touch of blue. With a bigger brush, add in the local shadows. A small shadow is shown on the right side of the left sleeve. Notice it's a few brush strokes to indicate it's just a darker value there. Left side of the blouse, darker value due to being more in shadow by adding more blue to the white. And I try to keep the brush stroke as is without blending too much to go for a more loose painterly look. And now for the satchel here, I wasn't sure about adding this thing, but I went for it and attempted to go for it by using a number 6 flat brush and loading it with burnt umber. And this is going to be a bold stroke, and just going to leave it just with one stroke without going over it and over it. I knew I had one chance, and I just had to leave it alone. And I like the loose look and feel of that satchel. So touching it up now, I add a bit of a shadow here in the pant area, more wrinkles in the blouse, correcting the shadows and the highlights on the back, controlling the exposure of that yellow and turquoise underpainting that I said I'd come back to later. And this way I control just how much of it I want to show through. And again, just to have more texture to add interest and keep it fresh looking. And there you have it, my method of creating more visual interest by using the little painted texture and not leaving like big blocks of color in your work. But why do this, you might be asking? Well, if you view this work from far, it'll look, pretty much straightforward representation of the image, right? But when people get up close to it, they'll notice all the little details, the little brush marks, and the textures. So that creates more interest. People will stare at it longer, and it's just a lot more fun to paint. All right, thanks guys. I hope that you found this video helpful, and maybe you may have found something new. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.